on Team Sideline as well, for those of you who missed it, to get all the information you need. But being at the meeting is the best way because it's the best chance you have to interact with me. And then our umpire-in-chief, Brad, will be calling in as well. Brad, I see someone's on the phone. Is that you? No, it's not. So hopefully he'll be coming in later. But he'll be a great opportunity because he knows the rules much better than I do, so he'll be able to explain those better. Otherwise, everyone, if he can't answer anything, I'll do my best to answer it. And if both of us can't, then we will look up the rules for you. Right now, I'm going to share my screen so everybody, you can see what I'll be going through. All right, fantastic. All right, so this is going to be our fall season. Everyone, thank you for being here. This right here, this website is Team Sideline. This is going to be our one-stop shop for pretty much everything you need for the season. Right now, we're using it as we're using the main page as advertising for our corporate games program, which is starting up here in October. And hold on, I just received an email. Sorry, let me check this really quick. He's asking for an access code and a numeric password. Sorry, everyone, 1 second, please. All right, hopefully Brian is able to join us as well. But right now I am on teamsideline.com, and this is going to have all your schedules, your status, and everything else that you need for the season. So we scroll down here right now, we have all of our main advertisements for our main programs, and right now the soccer schedules are available. Tomorrow afternoon, the softball schedules and divisions will be available. Unfortunately, they're not quite finished yet. I still have some work to do on them, but I'll be getting to them shortly. So once they're available here, you'll scroll over to soccer or softball, sorry. You'll find your night and your division. Click on it, and it will open up a page that looks like this. There will be messages at the top for you. As you scroll down, you'll see your team, your record, and then you'll be able to see the schedule. Keep in mind, as far as the schedule is concerned, things happen. Unfortunately, we're not all professional players who are able to build our lives around softball. We all have other things going on. It happens. And so as things come up throughout the course of the season, some games may move around for different reasons. So if that happens, then I'll be sure to reach out to you to let you know. But I do want to give you a heads up that just because you see it on the schedule on the first day doesn't mean it's going to stay that way forever, just as a heads up. All right, but this is our Team Sideline website. And to get here, you just go to your browser, www.teamsideline.com/Ventura, and it will take you right here. For those who aren't familiar, there is a free agent sign up right here. I know you all have a team, but for the future reference, if there's another sport you'd like to play, you can see our variety of sports here. You can join any one of those. Or for teams who are looking to add players, you can always ask me and I can send you a list of free agents. Oh, I'm sorry, I did receive an email. I want to make sure. My apologies, everyone. Apologies, everyone. I will be getting back to the business later. I'm going to close my emails. All right. All right, so as you scroll down here as well, you'll notice a few other details. Here's the link to register online, but you've already done that. Here's the roster as well. For those teams that haven't submitted one, please submit one as soon as you can. You don't need signatures. We'll get signatures on the day of the first game. But I would like to have a roster as soon as possible. And here's the manager's code of conduct as well, which I'll be referring to later in the meeting. If you scroll down further, you can see all the updates from our soccer meeting that we did on Tuesday night. Okay. Now, getting into the nitty-gritty, everybody, I know this is what you're all really excited for, is the rule book. So this is the rulebook that we have for our City of Ventura leagues. This is not necessarily an end-all be-all of rules for how slow pitch softball works. I'll be able to answer some of those questions later and refer you to another resource for that. This is just going to be the rules for participating in a City of Ventura league. 1 second, please. Hey, Brad, we're in the meeting. All right. Everyone, the umpire in charge has just called me. He'll be attending the meeting via my cell phone, so I'll be able to refer to him for any questions moving forward. All right, so you can see up here our deadlines. This is our Virtuals Matter meeting, and we start our leagues next Tuesday. Please remember to check standings as frequently as you can. I'll do my best to send out updates, but every now and then it's good just to check in again to make sure nothing has changed. Umpire fees are $15 per game, due at game time. Some umpires will take Venmo or Zelle, some won't. I would be prepared for anything before game time. Okay. Your team is limited to 15 players. You can have fewer. You can technically have more. However, that will cut into playing time. And will also make it harder for players to hit the 3 games required for the playoffs. This year we're going to be a little bit more strict. Your player needs to be on game day roster to be eligible for playoffs. It doesn't matter if they just show up every now and then. They need to be on the roster. We need to have their signature. So if you have someone join later in the season, make sure to add them to the roster. Don't just tell them to show up and they can play in the playoffs. We're going to be a little bit more strict this season. As well as the roster, players are going to have to sign COVID waivers to be eligible to participate, and we'll have those on the first day of games. So no worries in rushing to get those in ahead of time. At the end of the season, we only give out 15 prizes, which is why we put the prize at 50, which is why we max the team size at 15. Because if you have more than 15 players, that means somebody's not going to get a prize. There are 8 games per season. If you're in a 5-team division, you might have double headers. But otherwise, you'll be playing 1 game a week. If you're in a 7-team division, you may have a bye week, but you'll still get the 8 games played throughout the course of the year. Games are 70 minutes, and we use 1 ball, 1 strike. If for any reason you need to forfeit, please let me know as soon as possible. If you give me more than 24 hours notice, then you will not pay the forfeit fee. However, if it's less than 24 hours, you'll be responsible for the full forfeit fee, which it would be $30 for your team and the other team. We don't make the other team pay for a game that they don't get to play. You can arrange forfeit fees with me. Okay. If the weather is not looking great, you can email me or call me. But I'll be posting updates on field conditions throughout the course of the day. So I'd say 3 p.m. would be the time to check. That's when I put a cutoff that's usually when I put the cutoff for when I'm going to announce whether games for sure happen or for sure don't. This is because the fields crew will be working all day, and sometimes they don't let me know until later in the afternoon whether or not the fields are ready to play. And there will be situations as well where the weather turns after 3 p.m., in which case it will defer to the umpire on the field's call as to whether or not games are safe or not. Okay. We use the SMAF rulebook with a few exceptions. All right. All the fees must be paid before the game starts. There are no Little League fences at Camino right now, so we can ignore the home run rule. All right. Please be early to check in about 15 minutes before your game. Game time is forfeit time. If your team isn't ready to play, then the umpire may forfeit your team. I recommend trying to get there as early as possible. You need to have a minimum of 8 players present to start the game. You can actually start with 7 if you're batting, but if you don't have 8 players by the time it's your turn to field, then it will be called a forfeit. All games are played to 1 hour and 10 minutes or 7 innings, whichever comes first, unless a mercy is in effect. For any co-ed teams, you can start a game with 8 players, but you cannot play with more than 5 men on the field. So you can do 5 and 3 or 4 and 4. You can have more than 5 women as well if you need to fill out players, but you cannot play with 6 or more men. Keep in mind as well, for the outfield, for the co-ed, there's a 180-foot arc in the outfield. Only a female is allowed to be inside of this arc when a female is up to bat. For teams that have fewer than 9 players, the other team can provide a courtesy catcher. If we catch you playing with illegal players, then the umpire may forfeit the game. This is the mercy rule. I'm not going to go into very big detail about it, but if your team's getting crushed after the 4th, 5th, or 6th inning, then the umpire may end the game early. And very importantly is on the blue card the umpire gives you before the game, please write all players' names down in the order that they're going to be batting. Please write legibly. We use these to check verifications for the end of the season. If a name is hard to read, or if a player shows up late and their name isn't on there, then we may not consider them as present for that game, even if you beg and whine and moan to me. So please make sure everybody who shows up, their name is on that card. That way we can count them for the playoffs. I don't want to have to kick people out who are there just because they showed up a few minutes late and you forgot to write their names down, or you wrote their names down illegibly and we didn't give them credit. Yes, Brad?
To make sure they know it's first initial and last name.
Thank you, Brad. And Brad, our umpire, has also reminded me to say that it is first initial, last name. If, for instance, you have multiple people with the same first initial and last name, please write full names. I get a lot of J. Smith, J. Smith, J. Smith. In terms of verifications, it's very hard to determine which J belongs to which person. So please do John, J, and Jack Smith in those situations. In terms of alcohol at the parks, I know it's softball, I know the atmosphere, I know it's usually very drinking friendly, but I would like to remind everybody that drinking at City of Ventura parks is not allowed. If an umpire catches a member of your team drinking during the game, especially in the dugout, they have the ability to forfeit you on the spot. Many of our umpires are a little bit loose with with how strict they are allowed to be, but I would like to remind you all that that is the rule as it is written in the rule book, and if they choose to do so, they can and do have the authority to forfeit a game if they see you drinking alcohol. So please respect that rule. I understand the atmosphere. If you can't wait for an hour and 10 minutes to go to the bar down the street, then I don't know what to tell you. But we are going to be very strict with enforcing this rule, so please respect the City of Ventura parks, and please no littering. I added these rules for this past summer. We managed to get rid of a few of them after a few weeks, but I'll go over them again. Players should self-administer wellness checks before the game. We don't want people playing if they're sick, regardless of what you have. If you're sick, stay home, take care of yourself, get healthy. Don't spread your germs to other people. We'll have signs posted at the fields. If you're nauseous, you're not feeling well, just go ahead and head home, take care of yourself. We're going to try to remind people that sportsmanship should be touchless. We prefer people not doing high five lines, but if it happens, it happens. And then everyone's favorite part, the code of conduct. These are basically, if we catch you in violation of any rules, the umpires are allowed to follow these steps to enforce the rules to make sure that the rules are being correctly followed by all participants. I would like to remind everyone that if for any reason myself, my staff, or an umpire feel it is necessary to skip over steps in discipline, that is totally within our rights to do to promote the safety and protect the people at the parks. But the progressive discipline typically is a warning, warning first, team member or person who's causing a disturbance being removed, and then a suspension. But once again, if we feel that someone is abusing any of the rules, we can skip over any of them. We can skip right past the warnings and go straight to a suspension if we need to. This usually comes into play when a player has committed a major infraction. Anyone who is ejected from a game for a major infraction will be suspended for 1 calendar week minimum, which means they will be kicked out of that game and they won't be allowed to play for another week. That doesn't just mean in your next week's game. That means if you're on other teams, you can't play for them either. Major infractions are physical contact with an official player, staff, or fan. Even if you attempt to swing at somebody and don't make contact, if you're getting into a physical altercation with somebody, then you will be suspended at least with a minimum of a week, oftentimes longer. Verbal abuse, objectionable demonstration. This is unnecessary profanity, doing rude gestures towards people, making a scene, throwing bats, gloves, anything, causing damage, doing something that might cause damage to something at the park or somebody's equipment or person would be considered an objectionable demonstration. Unnecessary rough play. Yes, Brad?
While you're doing this, I would like to make it clear that we're all adults out there and we need to behave.
Thank you, Brad. Our umpire in charge, just in case you couldn't hear it, would like to remind everybody that we are all adults out there. We take softball seriously, and we take ourselves seriously, and we're all paying to be out there. But we are adults. Let's act like it. It's fun to be with our bros out in the park having a good time, but we need to be responsible for the facility. We need to be responsible to other people, and we need to be responsible to ourselves as well. Next infraction is unnecessary rough play. Softball, there is contact in softball. It happens. You're making a play at third base. You're sliding into home. You're going to get in contact with people, and that happens. It's part of the game. However, there is a degree to which you could be making a dangerous play that is unnecessary. And if the umpire deems that the play that you're making is unnecessary or overly rough, they can kick you out. These first three, keep in mind, they can be subjective. Umpire to umpire may have a different interpretation of an unsafe play, objectionable demonstration, etc. So just because you did one thing one week doesn't mean that it's going to be okay for your next umpire the week after. I would always recommend just play it on the safe side. Don't push your limits. I know a lot of teams get very friendly with umpires and each other, and it's okay as long as everybody's on the same page. However, don't expect special treatment from anybody, from any other umpire or any other team, just because you've been in the league for a while. And the last one, which we talked about briefly as well, is not subjective. It is very objective. We see you catching alcohol, we have the authority to remove you from the game and suspend you for a week. Okay. If for any reason you feel that a suspension is unwarranted, then you may repeal it. However, this is only for suspensions longer than 1 week. So if you feel that a suspension was unwarranted or the penalty was overly harsh, you are allowed to appeal it. All you need to do is just send an email to me asking for an appeal and asking for a review. In which case, I'll refer back to the umpire, my staff, my supervisor as well, to determine how we feel about the incident, the altercation, and the punishment. All right, bats. Get a lot of questions about bats. Unfortunately, I don't always have a lot of great answers. We do not allow composite in the barrel of any bats in City of Ventura leagues. You're allowed to have composite material in the handle, but not the barrel. Otherwise, our bats need to be made of wood or aluminum. They can be single or double walled, but they need to be aluminum regardless. They also need an official ASA stamp. And I'm not sure if ASA changed their logo to USA within the past year or not. Somebody else might know that better than me, but it does need to have an official stamp. Even if it's completely legal, if that stamp fades, an umpire is allowed to remove it from the game. Also, bats cannot exceed 1.2 BPF or exceed the 98 miles per hour limit. A few other additions as well: no fiber wrapped or non-aluminum coated bats. No wood or aluminum fungo bats, and then no baseball, senior softball, or fast pitch bats. For teams who are struggling to find bats, please feel free to, if you're looking at them online, send me the link to the bat you're looking at. I'm happy to review it. If it's in a store, feel free to take a photo and send the photo to me. I like to be up to speed on bats as much as possible. And one thing I also like to do is to plug Play It Again Sports here in Ventura. We work hand in hand with the owner and several of the staff for Play It Again very frequently. So most of them are very familiar with the bats that we use in our leagues, and they are a great resource for knowing whether or not something will be illegal or not. I wouldn't say take their word blindly, but they're a great resource.
One of the things.
Yes, and from Brad as well.
Is that resource? I've bought a variety of other things. It's really good compared to what you have to pay for new equipment, and it is like new.
Thank you, Brad. Brad would like to remind everybody that as well played again, they have great prices and very good quality. So I'm sure the owner is going to love me plugging them right now. All right. Classification, I'm going to go through this quick, but basically we pretty much do a strictly novice classification. We do have a rec classification, which is our highest level. But below that is novice, which we break into a few different classifications. Novice is the lowest, followed by novice A, novice B, novice 1, and novice 2. These are all in the order they are in. We try to get it based on experience and skill level. This is more art than science, especially for a lot of teams that haven't played in a while, for new teams, for company teams especially. And most of the work falls on me to try to organize people, which is why you'll be getting a lot of emails from me asking how your team is looking, or phone calls saying, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? So sorry to bug you all with those questions. But that is part of my job to try to put things together and keep teams as competitive as possible. What we want is even divisions. A lot of people call me and complain and they say, why did you move us up? We didn't win. Unfortunately, this is not EPL where if you win, you get bumped up, and if you lose, you get bumped down. Like I said, this is more art than science. I've got every season, I've got dozens of new teams that have never played before that are going to move people around. Some teams come in with experience, some teams don't. Some teams come from other cities, and some teams have been playing in our division for ages. And I'm constantly trying to juggle those back and forth between trying to figure out who would be competitive with who, where everybody fits in. Our goal is to have very even divisions. We want games that are very tight in score. We don't want anybody to go winless. We don't want anybody to go undefeated. We want every game to matter. So we want even the team that's in sixth to say, hey, if you win this game, you might be finished fourth and make the playoffs. So that ultimately is our goal. I say that right now, saying that once the divisions are set and I send out the schedules tomorrow, they're going to be locked in at least for the first week, unless I notice anything horribly egregious. We're not going to be making any changes, so please don't email me saying, "Hey, I don't think we can compete here." You're placed there for a reason. If we feel that we've made a mistake after the first week or two, then we may make an adjustment if we can. But at this point, I would like to remind people that the divisions are going to be locked at least for the first week or two. As I mentioned before, you need to have players on your game day roster to be eligible. You can add and drop players all you need to for the first 4 weeks, but please make sure that they sign the roster. The rosters are all going to be available at Camino after the second week. So please coordinate with me ahead of time. Let me know that they're coming by. We want people to be eligible for the playoffs. So this is going to be the best way to make sure that players are playing actually deserve to be playing and should be playing where they are. There is an ad drop form on Team Sideline. You don't need to use it. You can just send me the names, but please send them to me as soon as you can. I don't want any surprises on playoff day. Okay. This issue has come up in the past for softball and soccer and basketball as well. So I realized it wasn't actually public anywhere, so I've decided to put it on our manager's guide now. But this is how we do our tie-breaking procedures. The top 4 teams in each division will make playoffs. And so the first way we do it is you're going to be seeded by winning percentage. And if 2 teams are tied at winning percentage, then it goes to head-to-head differential. This means if you played another team and you beat them and you have a tied record, you'll get the spot over them. If you've played twice and you split the games, whichever team had a better point differential between those 2 games will get the higher seed. Standings are updated weekly on Team Sideline. The top 4 teams will make playoffs. And then we do playoffs all in one night. The 2 and the 3 seed play at 6:15. The 1 and the 4 seed play at 7:30. And then the 2 winners will play at 8:45. And then we'll give prizes at the end of the night to the winners. Okay. At this point now, I've gone through the rulebook and Team Sideline. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to post it in the chat. I'm going to be ending screen sharing. And now I'll be able to answer any particular questions that people... Oh, sorry. One thing I do want to share with you before we go into the Q&A section, is I do want to give everybody the opportunity to see where our main rulebook comes from. So like I said before, we use SMAF, which is Southern California Municipal Athletics Federation. And this is going to be a great resource just for rules in general. So we use all of our rules here. So you can scroll down to softball. They have different rules for men's and co-ed. You can see their tournament schedule, results, and then general tournament rules are the ones that we use. Don't follow their bat rule. We have our own bat rule, but this is the general tournament rules right here. This will give the basic rule book, and then we have our differences as well. Okay. Now, with that covered, I'm going to end screen sharing and I'll open the floor to questions. Everyone, I do have the umpire Brad with me on my phone. So if there's a question that I can't answer, I'll read it to him and relay his answer to you. Please go ahead and type questions into the chat. This way I can answer them as they come up. In co-ed, do we need to alternate man, women in the hitting lineup? Great question. Thank you. For co-ed, you're going to post either all of your men in order, and then all of your women in order, or all of your women and then all of your men. Don't alternate on the score sheet. Just put all the men who are hitting in order. Then once you're done, post all the women that you're hitting in order. This way, if you have a different number of men and women, you won't be confused by who's up and who's not up. All right, I know my presentation wasn't that good. I'm sure there are other questions out there. I know we have somebody calling in. So if somebody calling in over phone has a question, I know you can't type, feel free to ask. Everybody else, if you would, please still ask in the chat.
Tyler, I do have a question. I'm on via phone.
Awesome, thank you.
Question with Tyler. I'm gonna have two minors. I know they're under 18. They're 16 years old. Is that possible for them to play?
Yes, so thank you. Great question. We do allow 16 and 17-year-olds to play in our leagues. However, their parents do need to sign basically permission slips to be eligible to play, and we will have those available at the fields on game day for them.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Of course. Any questions about rules as well, outside of just the basic ones that I've gone over? I know I did not cover everything that well. Thank you all, though.
Fine job.
Thank you, Brad.
Do we need to provide a ball for the game day?
Good question. So no, teams actually are not required to bring their own balls, except to warm up with. Part of your league fees goes to balls for the league. We'll give each umpire 2 balls at the beginning of the day, and the umpires will use those brand new balls as game balls for each field. So you won't be able to keep the balls after your games are over, but you will not have to worry about providing your own game balls. Usually I get more questions than this. All right. If those are all the questions, then everybody, thank you all for being. Oh, sorry. For someone, I just got a question for someone who's missing the first 4 games of the season, and you can run this as well for anybody if they miss the first week or 2. Once you are available to sign the roster, please let me know. As I said before, the rosters are available at Camino, so I'll just make sure to have the roster ready for you to sign as soon as you have a new player adding on, or if you're missing the first couple of weeks, then we'll just have you sign the roster as soon as you're ready.
I have a question.
Of course, go ahead.
Let's say that you mentioned that if a team doesn't have enough players,
Mhm.
and they forfeit, right? Do we get the money back? Whoever has the whole money, the whole team.
So if a team forfeits, are you talking about the league fees or the game fees?
No, on game day, if they don't have enough players.
So that would be the umpires. That would be the umpires fee. If a team
Oh.
forfeits, then you shouldn't be paying the. And if your team shows up and the other team doesn't, then you shouldn't be paying the umpire
Okay,
for
I
the
see.
game.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Great question here from great question here as well in the chat. Can I request someone to be available to collect signatures during week 2? Yes. I know we're usually very on top of week 1. We tend to peter out in week 2. I'm very short staffed right now, but I will have plenty of staff for week 1. For week 2, I won't have as many staff available, but I will make sure to have at least one person who is available to collect signatures for anybody who's late or if a team misses the first week of games.
What about masks wearing because of COVID?
It is an outdoor sporting event, and we feel, at least with fielding, you can remain a safe distance away from anybody, unless you're making a play on the ball or a play on the runner. So we are not requiring them for on-field play, and we're not going to be requiring them in the dugouts as well. It is going to be personal choice whether or not you would like to wear a mask or not. However, everything is changing right now. If something changes during the course of the season, then we will be forced to make a change, and everyone will have to adapt to it. Okay. All right, those are all the questions then. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I'll be sending out an email tomorrow afternoon with a link to the schedule and divisions, as well as a link to this recording in case you missed anything, and the chat as well to review the questions. Yeah, appreciate everyone's time. Thank you all for being here. Can't wait to see you all out there next week. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you.
Can I
We'll
have
see you
about
next week.
1 second?
Of course, Brad, no problem.
Thank you.
Let me know when you're available.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.